Ha ha. You better choose yourself and let's get it. Welcome to another episode on the Choose Yourself channel, giving you more growth than you can handle, where we trigger you to choose yourself through accountability and community. Come on now. Today we got a very special guest. My brother. First time I met this guy, he asked me to spot him on some 100-pound dumbbells, and if you guessed his age, you wouldn't believe me. Boy, looking like he could be my age, for real. He's living proof that abs don't expire. They just mature like fine agave spirits. He went from partying with the stars to training them. Now he's training according to them and has a book to tell you all about it. From late nights to early mornings, from chasing quick dopamine to embracing real dopamine. And they don't call me Dopamine Hakeem for nothing. So stay tuned in, because this episode's about discipline, redemption, the transition, story, and how to stay fit without selling your soul. Welcome to the show, author, players coach, fitness trainer, and self-chooser OG, Greg Peck. How you feeling, man? Thank you.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I feel lovely. And I remember when we first met as well,
I was like,
Yeah.
damn, I got to get my weight up, man. This man's over here pushing them hundreds up. Damn. Yeah, that was inspired ever since.
Likewise, man, your energy is contagious. Every time you come into the gym, it uplifts the environment,
Man, thank you, man. Thank you. And I wasn't always like that, but I'm sure you weren't either. Why don't you tell us a little?
Oh, no.
Right? I don't think anybody who's a true spiritual leader or leader of anybody hadn't been through the dark place. I think that's where the light comes from. Would you agree?
No question about it, because I definitely seen the doctor, okay?
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your story leading up to like a very transformational turning point in your life, and then how does that impact you now?
Okay, well, first of all, I grew up in the Bronx, New York, on the streets of the Bronx. Got exposed to a lot of things early. Some things good, some things bad. Okay, but the thing that kept me grounded was the fact that I wanted to be a football player. And I knew didn't have the talent to play professional football. But I said, if I can get through 4 years of college football, that'll be great. So, so I, grew up, like I said, grew up on the streets. I grew up with everything from everybody from uh, phew, hustlers, people who were got their PhD. So in other words, one guy was a doctor. A couple guys died early. I mean, so in other words, the typical story of when you grow up in, like in the community, you know all kind of people and you've seen all kinds of things. So football kept me grounded, and I was lucky enough to go on to play Division III football, high school football, Division III football. So from there, by accident, completely by accident, after going to graduate school, I was a DJ, actually, a jazz DJ. And through meeting some people, I wound up getting an interview with a record company. And I wanted to actually, man, be a college professor. That was my goal. I didn't even know about the business I was getting ready to enter. So in December of 1976, I entered into the recording industry as what you call a local promotional rep. My territory was from Cleveland to Indianapolis, Louisville, Cincinnati, Dayton, Pittsburgh. And my job was to get music exposed via the radio stations, going to the record stores, dealing with the artists when they showed up to town, whatever. From there, I was picked up by, that was Atlantic Records. Then from there, I went to Chicago. I was picked up by CBS Records. And I'm not going to go through my whole, background in terms of where every inch of where I was in the record business. But I will say this: I started at the bottom, and through the grace of God, I was able to work my way up to become a vice president. And that was that. And then at one point, I got tired of the politics that was involved. So, being I told you that I had a past physical history, so I said, what can you do that you would enjoy doing? You're working out 4 days a week anyway. You enjoy working out. So I said, before I even left the record business, I got my first certification as a personal trainer. So entered into that field. And I'm still in that field. and that's 23 years in that field. And then towards the like as that has matured, I realized that the most important thing was not the physical transformation. That's important, but the mental transformation is even that much more important. And I stumbled upon by accident. Once again, it's like God has been just guiding me by accident to find different things. So I came across a course that said behavioral change, and I was thinking that, you know what, you have been involved in the physical realm for all this time, but you have this intellectual part of you as well, and you want to satisfy that. So I took this course, and I wound up liking it. And from there, I actually spiraled into becoming a coach. Okay, and not the proverbial coach, as you know, is a coach of a football team or basketball team. This is more about life and mental growth and enhancement. So I got into that, and I started that once again on the bottom. And for the last, although I have a full time job, I have over about 550 hours of coaching, and so I've been dealing with that. I'm ICF, which is International Coaching Federation certified. I'm a national board certified coach. And so I also, in doing that, decided that what can I do to enhance that? So this year I passed the test for the what they call professional coach for ICF, and I'm decided that I needed to have a particular niche, and that niche would be transforming and like having people grow in terms of one thing or the other. So I became a life coach, a transitional life coach, hoping people to transit to go forward in different areas of their life, no matter where it might be, physical realm, spiritual realm. I've dealt with people in relationships, all type of things like that. The idea is to actually transform and to grow into the next step of life that you want to choose to get into. So that kind of like sums it up quick. Transform and to grow into the next step of life that you want to choose to get into.
Yeah,
So that kind
that's
of like sums it up quick.
man, you do a lot, man. That's inspiring. I think that's one thing about people who are in personal development when you're truly connected to the God inside. It's like, how much can I develop this version to try to get to the version that was put in me when I came in the world before people try to make me a version that I'm not, before I try to seek validation. Let me be a hustler. I want to be a player. I want to be a pimp. I want to be a millionaire. All these things come from us viewing our life through someone else's lens. And then at some point, it's like, it's no longer about that. It's about the transformation that then allows us to pour and exemplify from an overflow to inspire and provide hope inside others, which is the God in them. The hope, the authenticity, the story is what, what your story and what you just explained of transitioning through all these different channels, compartments, platforms. It still came from a similar root of aspiring to grow and then help others. But when is a time where he was like, "I don't know what I'm doing right now." Because you keep changing. Did you ever change out of a fear, out of uncertainty, or was it always like, "All right, this is it. I know what I'm doing. This is next."
We know though, I would be lying if I tell you that I didn't go through some very dark days in the record business. I was in it for 23 years. I know what it's like to be out of work for 9 months at a time and wonder if you're ever going to get a job again. The physical manifestation of that in terms of the stress and what that takes on you. I know what it's like to work in a very racially charged industry when I first got in it, and I had to transition and be able to overcome that and still remain myself. So I've been through some dark times, and usually there's always a catalyst in terms of when you transform yourself or you decide to go into something different. It's usually something that propels you.
Mhm.
And I would say that I was propelled by accident to get into the record business, and I didn't know, but I always loved music. I love music just like I love sports. So that was one being propelled in one particular case. Then to get into personal training, I was tired of what was going on in the industry, the music industry at that time. So once again, I was propelled into something else, and that's where personal training came in. And then the coaching situation, I was propelled because I was still thirsty for something more than just being a personal trainer. So I think that a lot of times, um, you are kind of pushed into the next thing. You
How
know,
can
it's like a thing where you might go ahead.
no, how can people decipher if they're being propelled or misguided?
Well, you know what? I think that a lot of it comes from really being honest with yourself, sitting down and trying to make conscious decisions that feel right.
Mhm.
Okay, so in other words, we have a mechanism within ourselves that tells us right and wrong. Even when we do something and we know it's wrong, but we still do it anyway, there's a piece of us that knows that it's wrong, but we go forward. I think it's the same, and we make a decision that we're going to do whatever it is that we say we're going to do. What I believe is the same thing in making a decision. It's a matter of sitting down, thinking about it, looking at your background, your thoughts. What are your desires? What are your hopes? What might be pressuring you or whatever, and sitting down with yourself and deciding what feels right to me. Okay, and because when that thing comes across you that feels right, you feel it in your heart and in your soul that this is the right move. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to turn out to be right, and because we never know when we get into something how it's going to turn out, we don't know. But at least you go into something feeling that I'm feeling good about this particular situation, which I'm going to try, and then you have to try it as hard as you can and see how it turns out.
How do you increase your awareness of that feeling?
Oh man, that's you know what? That would be a question that each individual would have to ask for themselves. Okay, because in other words, what would work for me might not work for someone else. Okay, but I would say that you have to find some peace within yourself. You can't make a decision based on pressure, based on being pushed into something. It's like a thing where you have to sit down quietly within yourself and actually, if you have to write it out, if you have to talk it out, if you have to think it out, if you have to pray it out, you have all or any of those things, or all of the above, to get in touch with what it is that you feel you should make a transition to, it will come to you. But you have to be willing to go through that process of really self-evaluation.
Yeah. Yeah, even that's pillar 2, and you were talking about positions of being propelled, which is also described in the choose yourself process, the first pillar of turning point, where we get
Mhm,
triggered if we don't heal parts from our past. We get triggered because of life. Our relationships are a mirror of us. How we view them is literally how we view our paradigm. There'll be trigger points, and if you
mhm,
try to defend them or shut down or over explain, they will continue to trigger you. But if we do the work before the
mhm,
trigger point, we can be aware of it, step back, create space between emotions and action, and then choose with intention. And then you turn that trigger point to a turning point, which then feels like we're being propelled. Now, if we don't do the work on the trigger point, then we'll get triggered and then we'll find a way to get over it. But then once we visit that trigger again, we'll go to a breaking point and then we go back down
mm.
to square one. And so it'll be trigger, and then we'll be okay. I'm over it, but you didn't heal it. You just were over it. You're like, fine, whatever. I cut that person off, or I don't want to do that again. I'm not going over there again. But you didn't heal it. You just got triggered, and you got deterred. And now people might think that getting triggered is being propelled somewhere else. People might think that you know our external relationships are pushing us to propel, but it sounds like if you have the internal connection, you'll be able to decipher between trigger, propelling, turning point, breaking point. And what I believe is it's the systems we do in solitude that can help us understand
Mm.
that connection. Now, when you propel from your turning points, you turn the trigger points or the awareness into turning points. How did your actions in solitude impact your ability to evaluate your environment and then change your environment so it's in alignment with that new direction that you chose?
Well, you know what? I'll start from being young, okay? Because now I saw a lot of things in the street. I grew up in the time, and when I grew up um, in the Bronx in the '70s, man, in the '60s, uh, heroin was a very big thing. It was cheap. It was easy to get. And then all through high school, everybody was, and even before that, people doing drugs and stuff like that. And I said, well, you know what, though? That's really not for me. I looked at my parents. I said, I can't let my parents down like that. So I was able to see what was going on, but to move on. So my father had a saying that he taught me as a young boy that always stuck with me. And he said, to thine own self be true.
Mhm.
And literally, I have kept that saying with me my entire life. That saying kept me when the 12 or 13 guys were going to the left and that I hung out with, I was able to say that's not for me and go to the right. Okay, so
Chose
I
yourself.
had a there you go. That's perfect. That's why this is so apropos that we're doing this.
Yeah.
Okay, because once I heard that saying, that stayed with me. And I always kept it with me because you have to make a decision in terms of your own values or the things that you want to do as a boss and a leader. As I became a vice president, national director, and so forth, I had to make a decision in terms of how I was going to treat people. Okay, because the thing is that some people don't know how to handle power the right way. Some people are abusive. Some people were waiting for an opportunity to take out on people what they felt were the difficulties in their own life.
Mhm.
So the point is that I studied the fact that if you want to motivate people, if you want them to give you your best, you want them to walk through the wall for you, you have to treat them a certain way. Treat them the way that you would like to be treated. Okay, so the point is that that's what was able to propel me throughout, and to this day, man. It's even when we go to the gym, you'll see that I get along with everybody. I'm not trying to get along with everybody. I'm not trying to build friends. It's a matter of the fact that when you feel comfortable with yourself and you just connect with people, and I think that when you connect well with yourself, it's easier for you to connect with others. As you were saying earlier, the trigger points and all stuff like that, man, those words are so apropos because a trigger could be, as you so eloquently pointed out, could be used to either trigger you to do wrong or trigger you to propel and go forward.
Mhm.
And that's something that you have to make a decision on which way you're going to go. And you also mentioned the fact about healing. I had a lot of stuff to heal, man.
Yeah.
Okay, like a lot of disappointments with people. I had to heal a lot of stuff. And it's like a thing where you can't move, as you said, you can't move forward really until you make peace with where you were.
Mhm.
Because if not, just as you said, it's like a slippery slope. All you got to do is take that one step on the banana peel and you go back to where you were.
Right back. Right back, man. That's to
Hmm.
thyself stay true. Choose
There you
yourself.
go.
That's the way. Choose
Hmm.
yourself to be chosen. Meaning, first of all, we start with our creator. He chose you to be here.
Hmm.
Now, if we talking about resembling our creator, well, we have to choose ourselves after him because we wouldn't be here without him. So you have to choose. Now, the self we
Hmm.
talking about is not the one that's happy in the moment. It's the one that learns how to give meaning to life that is in alignment with your authenticity. Because everything that happens in life, all the actions, all the freaking natural disasters, all the epidemics and pandemics, all that stuff is just happening. How you feel about it, how you align with it, that's up to you to give it meaning. And now, can
Mm,
we find gratitude in it? Can we find positivity? Can we propel from it, from every single thing? That is our duty as a disciple of discipline. That is our duty as an embracer of balance and authenticity. And so, if we don't have the systems to embrace our story, do the healing, forgive, accept, those are the first things. The embracing your story, forgive,
mhm,
accept. You ain't got to forget. You better not forget. It's part of you now forever. I'll never forget it.
mhm,
I can't. Otherwise, I can't remember to be positive from the next time that shit happens. So
mhm,
that's what I believe the foundation does. Our solitude, our routines in solitude, just like Muhammad, just like Moses, just like Jesus, just like they all went in solitude, controlled their environment, prayer, practiced controlling the ego, hunger, pride. They had to control all these thoughts to then find out who they were here for, and then they were able to give back to humanity. So I'm not religious, but I like to use religion because a lot of people align with it, and a lot of people can understand that if you connect all the truths we all have similar truths in our story. What do you so you got a book
Mhm.
about training with the stars. Now that's another form of
Mhm.
belief is the stars, astrology, human design, and the
Mhm.
chakras, kundalini, you got Reiki, all that stuff too. What can you tell us about that? Like, and then how that aligns with your spiritual beliefs?
Oh, well, years ago, man, in the 70s, the first thing somebody used to ask you was they didn't ask you your name, they'd ask you what your sign was. Okay, so the first time that somebody asked me that and I told them my sign, they said, "Oh my God." I said, "Oh wow, what's that about?" I
Over a
said, "Oh
damn
my," I said,
sign?
I don't even know. Yeah, I don't even know you, and you tripping, right? So I said, "Okay." All right, so I said, "Let me stop. Let me go get me some books
Yeah.
and start reading about that." Right. So I started reading about it, and I said, "You know what? Okay, I can see where if I exemplify the negative uh, aspects of my side, it could be misconstrued as negative. At the same time, I see there's some positive things there. So let me, instead of looking at the negative, let me try to focus on trying to be the positiveness of my sign says it is. Okay, so that's one thing. And then after getting in the record business, man, I used to have to travel and go from state to state. The only major city in America I haven't been in is Denver. Okay, and I've been in all small towns, wherever there was an antenna that played black music, I was there. So you had to get ready to know a lot of strangers, and they would send me to get to build a relationship with these people. So one of the things I did, I got this one book called The New Astrology, right, by Suzanne White, and it gave me some insight into different signs and how they think and all that. And I'm not saying I'm a true believer in it. That like in other words, oh, you can't get along with so and so, or you know what? Oh, you destined for this and that because of your sign. I don't believe it like that.
No.
I believe the fact that it was placed in the world as as a form of knowledge that can be used if it's used correctly and not overused.
Right.
Okay, uh, so now I get into training people. Now I started to ask people what their signs were. And I found that after a period of time that people seemed to line up along with what their attributes were. And I said, that's interesting. And then I did research and I said, let me look at all of the athletes and famous people in the physical realm on each side and see if they have anything in common. And I saw that they did. So I said, you know what? I can put together a book that if people read it, it'll be fun because it's not like I'm saying this is the be all and end all, but it lets people know some of the people who are under their sign that have been physically capable and successful. So that might be inspiration for them to know that they can do it. For one. Number two is the fact that who their best workout partners are, what things that they seem to like and gravitate towards. So I was able to combine that in a book. And and this is going back, Hakeem, man, about about 10 years ago I wrote this book. And every now and then I still get requests. It's on Amazon, but I still get requests when I tell people about the book because they can't believe that anybody wrote a book based on astrology that had to do with exercise. So that's how it came together.
Damn. That's cool, man. I mean, so you're trying to find ways to similar how I use analogies from religion to try to get the truth across.
Hmm.
You can use astrology, we can use nature, we can use science, you can use mathematics, you can use stories, you can use colors, you can use anything. That's the thing. And when people start to evaluate, like, oh, they're a Christian, so I don't like them, or oh, they freaking believe in selling their kids or beating their women. Like, how are we supposed to? That's their truth. So to allow that to impact us because we believe it's wrong is now just creating internal suffering. If we like, oh,
Hmm.
that's a Gemini. I don't get along with them. What? How you know? You ain't even met them.
You don't
Oh,
even know. Yeah, you don't even
they're
know.
Republican. Oh, I'll never. What?
Yeah.
They're from this side of the
Mhm.
hood. What? Come on now. We are all people with similar desires and needs, and we're more alike than we are different. Now, if people take actions that don't align with what you believe, how do you deal with them if they're in your circle? Or even if they're not? Like in your workplace, you got colleagues, bosses who take actions. Like, say you had an overweight business partner who was just sloppy and unfit. Would you continue to do business?
Of course, because the thing is that now, if anything, if I feel comfortable enough with them, I would ask them if, because of my expertise, if I could be of any service to them or help them, or perhaps give them some information that might be helpful. But I don't know what it might be. See, we could make we look at, say, for instance, funny that you say an overweight person. Now, somebody might look at someone overweight and think that they have this reputation of being lazy or overeating or blah blah blah, and that might not necessarily be the case. It could be something that they're born with. They could have a thyroid issue, okay,
Wait,
or they
man,
might. Or
hold
if you
on.
look at their parents,
I don't. Hey, you believe that obesity can be passed down genetically?
yeah, because you know what? When you look at some of these people's parents, and I think this is what I mean by passed down. Now, if you look, when you look, and I've studied this just in terms of just general observation in the world, and you see children often mirror their parents in a lot of ways, not only from a DNA in terms of the intellectual situation and all that, but they might mirror them physically, or also the environment in which the kid is put in might lead to obesity. So it's not really that something that they are born with,
Right.
but they're prone to. Okay, because of their environmental structure. Okay, so that's what I mean by something that could be passed down. And you can't make a general consensus about somebody because of how they look, because you don't know what's going on with them. Okay, they can have mental problems that or be unhappy, and therefore they eat in terms of trying to satisfy or to just like somebody might do drink or do drugs to mask or get away from momentary pain. So the thing is that, or they might be genetically predisposed to lifting to being overweight, or they might have a thyroid issue. Or it might be so when you can't make a general consensus just looking at somebody. I happen to be the
Shit.
fact that I am, yeah, no, it's true. And the thing is this, man. Are you familiar with Stoicism?
Hell yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, Stoicism is a philosophy, as you know, it's an ancient philosophy, and it says that you learn to control what you can control, and that no matter what happens, it's your attitude towards that thing that makes a difference. In other words, there's sometimes a silver lining in each cloud. I mean, I remember being, I'll take this back to being fired unceremoniously because of an incident at a gym. A person at the gym came to me in a way I felt was disrespectful, and therefore, I invited the person to, if that's how you feel, maybe we want to, you want to do a little something more than that.
Take your ass
Okay,
outside then.
I actually invited him outside, to be quite frank with you. Okay, so anyway, but he said he reported me to corporate. Now,
Mm.
although I was the top trainer in that particular gym, I'm talking about balance at the time, I got fired. Now, I could have looked at that. I said I got fired unceremoniously, and the guy was wrong. But the silver lining in that was that I became an independent trainer. I started going to a place and learning more about equipment that we didn't have. And then I wound up ending up at the New York Health and Racquet Club, which is the predecessor of where I'm now, which was some of the best 8 years that I spent in the business. So my point being is that sometimes there's something happens to you, and depending on how you decide, you deal with it. You know, man, we in New York City, right?
Mhm.
Every time you go down the street, every time you're on the subway, you see somebody who is homeless, no shoes on, dirty, smelly, or whatever. And I always wonder, I would love to have talked to each and every one of them to find out what happened to them. In other words, how did they end up like that? And that's where the stoicism comes in. A lot of times, is if you have a support system, it's helpful. But even if you have to be your own support system, it's a matter of, do you allow this to take me down, as we said earlier, into a negative path? Or do I say, let me deal with this and see where I can take it? And a lot of people don't have the psychological or the physiological structure to be able to look at things that happen to them in a negative way and take it into something positive, or either to wait to see what could potentially be the silver lining of this situation.
But what
Okay,
makes us
so
different though?
you know what? You know what, Akeem? I think that some of it is experience, having gone through a lot of hardship. Look, when you, the one thing about the, like when you make a sword, okay, the sword is soft. You put it in the kiln. The kiln heats up that metal, right? Then it's put into cool water and then it's sharpened. Okay, see, that's life. In
Mm-hmm.
other words, that sword could have remained in that soft state and not become a sword, or it might not even have been sharpened and been a dull sword. So I look at that in terms of the experiences that you go through in life. They sharpen you and they don't break you. They humble you, yes, but they don't break you and they make your sword sharper. And that's based on experience. Once you come through enough hard times, you realize that there's more hard times to come. But since I've been through these hard times, maybe I can get through these hard times that are on their way to me. Because no matter how good our lives might be at the moment, we already know it's going to be some hard times because that's the cyclical part of life.
Mm-hmm. There comes a point where you get done dealing with your own shit. Otherwise, life will force you to choose yourself. That's what happens. And I think there's some points where life is trying to help people. You lose your health issues. Hey, choose yourself. You can stop doing that. You're in pain. You can't even fucking sleep. You can't freaking walk. You can't experience your kids.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, stop doing that. You want to blame genetics, environment, all that. You can blame it as long as you want, but eventually you will die. You want to lose time. You lose freedom, you lose money, you lose your kids, you lose
Mm-hmm.
relationships. Eventually,
Mm-hmm.
you lose something that hurts. And you're like, okay, I need to change. Nothing else is going to change. You can blame the judge, you can blame the felony, you can blame the economy, you can blame the president, blame whoever you want. But eventually, you got to get done with it and take accountability, radical accountability. What can I control? And it starts with the systems around your sleep. Mindful consumption, what's going into your sensory input, all five senses, and what are you doing around your sleep? Two things everybody can control. Everybody has dorsal cortex. Everybody has a prefrontal cortex. Some not fully developed, and otherwise you wouldn't be living. Well, there might be somewhere that's shut down, like a coma and whatnot. But we all have the power to choose, which is blessed in us by God. One of the very few species to do so. Now, if if somebody grows up broke and made it rich, somebody grew up abused and healed, somebody grew up fat, you have the opportunity to lose weight. There's resources and everything out here. And my thing is,
Mm-hmm.
with the body being a physical manifestation of the mind, you can fake all kinds of things without, unless you're fat, you can't fake it. It's clearly your choices are showing you're going through something. If I was going through something, I could fake it because I'm fit. But if you're overweight, unfit, it shows that you're going through something first without even have to say anything, is what I'm saying. And I think that should be, some people like that. You can see they're going through it so that they get sympathy and they get freaking days off and you can get a bigger seat and jump the line and all this stuff. But there's also a balancing universe of people who are created to show us what not to do. You believe that? Or is that why some people can't get to that point of accountability and turning, because they're meant to show us what not to do? Some people are fat till they die. Some people are broke until they die. Some people are violent until they die. Some people complain all the way until they die. So what is the difference between that and what you can help? What type of stuff would you help people like that to be able to embrace who they are?
Okay, well, first of all, there are lessons to be learned from every situation. Now, as you said, there's some people who were meant to be a certain way, and I don't know whether that's true or not.
Me either.
I'll just say that that's how they are. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I won't say, I'm not going to make a statement in terms of like, yeah, you meant to be overweight, or you meant to be depressed, or you meant to be abusive, or you meant to be this way. I won't say that because we do have some people don't have a choice. That's another thing. Some people actually, from a mental standpoint, a physical standpoint, or whatever it might be, or being sick, and they can't overcome. So you could be born with an autoimmune disease. Okay, it's like a thing where somebody could be like have type 1 diabetes or type 2. Now, type 2, I could do something about. I could change I can make sure I stay off that insulin by changing my diet and exercise. Type 1, I'm born with. That's autoimmune. Okay, that's why I'm saying that it's hard to make judgments about certain things because once you know enough about health and so forth, you know that certain things are under control of individuals and certain things are not. You know what? It's interesting that your moniker is choose yourself because choosing yourself doesn't mean to me that I choose myself above others and that I don't care about others. Choose yourself means that you have to be true to your own self and your values, and you should try to do the best you can with yourself. Okay. And I think that some people don't have any support. Okay. They don't have nobody to talk to. Look at this most recent individual, this football player, 24 years old, scored a touchdown the week before he committed suicide. Now, there's thousands of people that would have wanted to be a professional football player to play for the Dallas Cowboys. Okay, but obviously, even though he had reached a physical manifestation of being in good shape and playing professional football, there was something else going on that he couldn't overcome. And maybe he didn't have anybody to talk to. Maybe his agent he wasn't tight with his agent. Maybe he was a loner. Maybe he never told anybody that he was going through anything. Maybe nobody ever asked him what he was going through. Everybody just looked at his physical attributes and thought that he was doing fine. So that's an example of somebody who on the other side of the spectrum, who is in excellent shape, playing professional football, but having that can't fake it. So you can't. I think that sooner or later, man, whatever you're going through is going to come out one way or
Yeah.
the other. You
Yeah.
can mask it. You can mask it as best as you want, but it'll come out.
Yeah, and the fitter you are, the more fit you are for life. This is biblical and scientifical. It's anatomy. It's not if you're not fit, you're gonna have low emotional awareness, you're gonna be full of toxins and fat, and that's not healthy for you. Now, my thing is we go back to the primitive days. If you're staying alive due to medication, naturally, in God's world, you be dead. So, why are we having a food shortage? Why is there an overload of toxins in the food? Too many people. Now, let me get real with you here, Greg. Let me get real with you. If people who were born with diabetes didn't have medicine, would it be the survival of the fittest? Is God here to prolong the soul contract that said, hey, you're supposed to die in this amount of time, but humans kept you alive to drain more money? Now there's an imbalance in the world. What am I going to do? Fire, hurricane. Because God didn't put these medications on the planet. So are we taken away from God's vision, or are we trying too hard to be too compassionate? And now we're at a shortage of food, water, air, soil, and an overload of toxins, AI, and fake shit.
Yeah, but you know what, man? That gets to be a real deep question. You know why? Because there are people who are benefiting from that lack of food. There are people who are benefiting by allowing toxins to be in the food. I remember in what city was that in Michigan? I forgot. Years
Flint.
ago, there was a city in Michigan which they allowed uh like toxins to be in the water that were killing people. Okay, now that was a conscious decision that somebody allowed that. Was that because there was a steel mill by, and the steel mill didn't want to pay enough money for the filtration system, and they didn't care enough about those particular people because most of them were people of color, so it didn't really matter. So what I'm saying is that a lot of times behind a lot of these things, there is greed, there's control, and there's power, and also a lack of respect for the people who will be influenced or inflicted upon. And if you don't care about those people, then there's certain things that you like. If you go to a certain neighborhood, look, I forgot what rap song that was, man. I'm a big rap fan, right? And Jay-Z had a line. He said, "Why is it that in every black community there's a liquor store?"
Mm-hmm.
Now, now, if you go to a community out on the island somewhere, maybe they got the big liquor store that serves the whole community. Whereas in our area, we have the liquor store that's giving poison to people on every corner.
Mm-hmm.
Why is there a church in all of the hoods, either churches that are big or small? Because they're hoping that first of all, there's money involved, but also the thing they're using the fact that people are there are a lot of people of color, and that's not just black. I'm talking about other people. They're religious people, so we can control them through religion. So let's have a church everywhere. Let's
Mm-hmm.
have a liquor store everywhere. So some of these things are being engineered and designed
And fast food
depending on
only.
who's in. Oh, man, that okay. I'm glad you said that. Now, look, you can go in any hood in America, and I've
Popeyes.
been to. No, let's go beyond that because Popeyes is not terrible. I eat Popeyes every now and then, but you'll find there'll be a Chinese takeout in every black community. Now, Chinese people and black community, they don't look nothing alike. Culturally, they don't have nothing in common. But because the food is cheap, it's right there and it's in every community. Why is it that you can't get fresh food in the South Bronx? Okay, and why is it that the cost of that food is more than if I went to the Hamptons? These are all things that are engineerically designed by people. It just doesn't happen.
So right. Food deserts, it's like that. There's a wealth gap. There's actually back home in Minneapolis, we're the creators of suburbs. Minneapolis. So people were complaining about the price. My boy's a realtor and he actually speaks on this. He was on the last podcast, Rob. I played football with him. He was talking about they made suburbs to create cheaper housing because when people started to move to the city in Minneapolis, the block would be devalued if black people lived on a block. So they created the suburbs, which then, and that was birthed in Minneapolis. But so I understand all that. Now, breaking free with consumption, I believe it starts with community. You have to start with the
Okay.
parents first who know freaking better.
Mm-hmm.
Stop with all
Or,
that
should
should
know better. They
should
don't. You
know better,
can't.
but they may
Yeah, they
not,
don't
right?
know.
Because the system as well is already developed for that, not to understand, And so helping the parents understand what's going on, everything we just said, with the food, water, air, screens, economy, politics, and what they're teaching the kids, even in the school system. This is all part of propaganda, spiritual awakening, alignment, choosing yourself, authenticity. Like this has to become a part of our journey of acceptance that this is what it is. And eventually, there's going to be a turning point of people who invest in themselves and people who practice comfort and complacency. And it's going to split like the damn Red Sea. It's coming up here. AI is going to do it because they can't control people who have control of themselves. They can only control the ones who want to play the victim and play comfort and blame genetics and take meds. That's who they can control. So if I'm going to allow that and say, hey, it's okay, you're on meds. Oh, it's okay, you went through something. You're going to be split on the other side where I can't help you one day. So right now I'm in your face, triggering accountability and say, my parents were both addicts. They're both obese. Both got all kinds of shit. I don't. And I was raised with them. And so I'm living proof. But I wasn't raised in the hood. But I also went through all this other shit to where I was angry for years. Pulled myself out without any type of well, I had obviously external help, but I was in solitude a lot reading books. That's what I chose to do. Now, if you can't read, here we go again. Fine. Oh, some people can't read. Okay. Go on ChatGPT and look the shit up. Go on YouTube where you be looking up all that other gang violence. There has to be a point in somebody to want to change and want to seek to do better. And if one's not going to seek help, how is God going to help them?
It's impossible because first of all, you have the first thing that what do they say in Alcohol Anonymous? That the first thing that they have to admit to is that they're addicts. And the second thing they admit to is the fact that I need some outside intervention and help in order for me to kick this alcohol. So as you said, is that a thing where if I want to change, I have to have a desire to do so. If I want to stay in the condition in which I am, I can make that choice as well. But then don't say nothing about it because you made a choice and you stand in it. But if you want to get out, there's so many ways now and people and different things, man, that you can use to help you get out if you need that help, if you need some help. So you really have to decide that I want to change because you won't change unless it comes to the point where you admit that you need to change and that you want to do it yourself.
Especially now, there's a lot of resources on free, online, free therapy, free hotlines, free communities. If somebody reached out to
Mhm,
me, I would figure out a way to talk to
mhm,
you and get you some free services if you reach out, especially if you were a kid or somebody's
mhm,
parent. Like, I'm all about the next generation for sure. I'm actually speaking in a school on Friday in St. Louis, 2 schools. And that's exactly what I'm gonna be talking about my main thing is detaching from those screens. That's my main goal from the kids. Put your screens down and be careful what you're watching online. That's the main thing. Obviously, they
mhm,
got vapes and they got processed food, but really the screens are the worst because it's pushing the vape culture. It's pushing the processed foods. It's
mhm,
pushing, the sexual content and violence. So the screens is the root. You cut that off, you get them to prioritize a digital sunset, a nighttime routine, sleep, and then a morning routine before the screens. Not saying you can't go on the screens, but find a buffer first. That's what I'm trying to push to the next generation. But what would be one truth about that you would want to now present to the younger generation that won't believe it until it's too late?
Oh, man. I would say the most important thing is discipline,
Hmm.
okay? Because as you just said, look, there's for you to think that you're gonna go into St. Louis and talk to these kids and they're gonna put down their devices, that would be a desired point, but they're not gonna do it because it's part of their culture. But that doesn't mean that they can't have discipline in terms of how many hours or how much time they look at. They look
Hmm.
at it. What are their choices in terms of what they're looking at? And what else are you doing to balance off your life to keep that social media and all that stuff balanced and not let it lead your life? Because see, social media is a funny thing. Okay, there are a lot of people who live through social media because it tells them what they want to be, what they'd like to be. They're looking at somebody else's life and thinking that that's the life I want, or why can't I get that life? When the truth of the matter is that that's their life, it's not yours. You got to make
Hmm.
your own life. Okay, they ain't got your life ain't got nothing to do with looking at Kim Kardashian or whatever what they doing. You can look at it, but that's their life. That ain't your life. Okay, so the point is that if the discipline is the most important thing, learning self discipline. I think that's the keyest thing that you can look at to tell anybody.
Yeah, I agree. And that's what I'm going to say, man. I appreciate you tapping in. Big Greg, man. It's always a pleasure to have the conversations. What you working on that we can look forward to? I'll put all your info in the show notes once I post this, probably first week
Well,
of December. But what you got? What do we got to look forward to?
well, you can. I provide coaching services, and my coaching company is called Head with a two, Head Coaching Collective. My website is Head to Head Coaching. And I also do a little pro bono work with them because just as you said that you want to reach out to people. So if somebody wants to for me to help coach them in terms of transitioning into different parts of their life, we can talk about it. And it's like sometimes it's pro bono, or if they decide if they want to get involved in it a little deeper, they can. But that would be the main thing. And then I'm working on a project that I'm not going to disclose as of yet, but it's going to be a big project, so that's good. So you can just keep your eyes open to what's coming down the pike because I got a real big one I'm working on, but I don't know if it's going to work or not. Only God knows. But I'm attempting something. But in the meantime, people can reach out to me if they choose. Okay, and my email address is Greg at headtoheadcoaching.com. My other email is GPSANDE at Gmail. And if they feel comfortable and they want to text me, it's 917-428-0291. And we can begin a conversation via text if that is what's something that is more meaningful to an individual.
Yes, sir. Y'all heard it here, man. One of the best choices I ever made, I'm sure Greg can attest, is to invest in yourself. Mentorships, coaches, it's a shortcut to success.
Hmm.
So,
I agree 1,000% because you know what? We all need help.
yeah, for real. I mean, I got my community and my growth partners, and I got my boys and my
Hmm.
mentors, my parents, my relatives. I reach out to all the time, like, yo, I got this idea. What you think? What would you do? But there's also times where I'll
Hmm.
just I'll just do the damn thing too. Like that's important too, to just be like, man, I'm just gonna do it on my own and just figure it out. And that's also happened, but a lot of time that's a gamble. But hey, I appreciate you, man. I'm gonna see you soon. I'll let you know when this is posted. Y'all be sure to tune in with Greg Peck. Check out the show notes for his info. Keep the gratitude in your attitude. You can meet with me in the CYC every Tuesday at 10 a.m. EST to GYM, and that's Grow Your Mind so you can wake up on time. Make sure you choose yourself and don't lose yourself. And let's get it.